We're talking with Jeff Epton here, and Jeff is a person I've met over the years. A little bit of a background. You did some publishing in Dayton, Ohio. You did some publishing, I think, writing for Indies Times. You worked for the American Friends Service Committee. All that was here. That was in Chicago.
Actually, the American Friends Service Committee was in Michigan.
In Michigan. Well, tell us a little bit about where you're coming from.
I worked for the American Friends Service Committee in Michigan during the 80s. Was on the Ann Arbor City Council.
Were you there when they had to vote for whether they could have the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival, or was that earlier?
Actually, by that time, the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival had collapsed.
Yeah, okay.
That
was a great event, but that goes way back.
An absolutely great event. One in which one felt like when in attendance at the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival in the evenings when you had people like Buddy Guy playing and rockers, yeah, and John Sinclair, and that the revolution had already arrived. Of course,
it was all a little hazy to me.
Yeah,
I gotta say, I was up there. But
you might call those hallucinations, yes. But in the 90s, I was living in Dayton, Ohio, and the person to I am now married, Mary Ann McMullen, and I started a weekly paper, an alternative weekly, in Dayton called the Dayton Voice, named incidentally after Michael Moore's Flint Voice, though the Village Voice always imagined that we named it after them and came after us to stop using the Voice name at that point. But we did this free weekly through the 90s. I personally think that it was an editorial success, but it was an absolute financial crash and burn. And we came to Chicago in 2000 looking for real jobs, and Mary Ann started working as the communications director for Ask Me State Council in 2000. So, and now we are in Washington, D.C., so I only get back to Chicago.
And what do you do in Washington?
Me, I write, I blog, I take care of my 11-year-old, and I help out with school events when I can. Mary Ann works for the D.C. Public Schools and just started that job before she was there working as assistant to the president for the Service Employees International Union.
Jeff, let me ask you a little bit about your perception, your take on publishing. You were involved with the Dayton Voice. You were involved with Indies Times. I used to put out a paper called the Heartland Journal, which I swear will come out again by May 1st. There's some people say, no, just do this all online. Some people say, no, it's important to have newspapers. What's your sense on newspapers in particular and media in general, and its role it should or could and it does play right now?
Well, there's no question that we still need print media. And we probably need local print media, in my opinion, more than we need national print media. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that local print media would probably be more effective if it's free, or certainly cheaply available. Of course, if a paper's free, the chances of generating the kind of advertising revenue that would allow a publisher to maintain a large reporting staff and to do in-depth kinds of local investigative stories that are very necessary is pretty hard. So you'd have to have compromises. But I think we can't abandon print media, especially free local media, precisely because everybody isn't going to be connected and reading every website, nor does the internet lend itself particularly to local reporting. So I think that local print media is indispensable. I don't know what the successful economic model for that is.
No, a lot of that's got to get worked out, I think.
But, you know, you see a lot of hand-wringing in the national print media about what it means to our democracy to lose national print media. Well, the fact is you know, the national print media, to my mind, has never been more, whatever it has given to the extension of democracy, it has also taken away. National print media is by necessity corporate, and doesn't serve, except in rare incidences, probably, you know, as a result of the fervor and energy of individuals, you know, rarely does the kind of reporting that keeps people in power honest. And in fact, you know, I've lived in middle-sized or large cities all my adult life, essentially all my life, in Ann Arbor, Detroit, in Dayton, in Chicago, in D.C., and I'll tell you that I think the kinds of local reporting that will keep people informed about what elected officials are doing is probably a fundamental requirement in democracy, and you're not going to get that from national print media.
Time to publish, everybody. Get these little zines going. Jeff Epton, you know, you had sent me a note, and I think you actually had put it on your blog about things we might talk about, but we're going to run out of time here. So I'm going to ask you, as a resident now of Washington, D.C., who saw the highs of Obama coming to power and this rocky patch that we're in now, what's your sense of what's your sense of how people in D.C. are perceiving things and what's going on right now?
Well, very quickly, here's my take.
That's what I want. Your take.
I voted for Obama. And I assume you did, and I assume
and I will again.
That Bill and Bernardine did, but the realistic vote for Obama from someone coming from a left perspective ought to have been that what we can get from this guy is thoughtful deliberation and an openness to political perspectives that have real force behind them, that have real energy about them. He would be receptive to progressive political initiatives, but not because that's necessarily where he wants to go, but because this is a guy who shows every sign of being willing to govern in the interest of the largest possible majority. What that meant, and to me, this ties in with what I think is actually required in a democracy. What that means is that you cannot measure the health of a democracy by what happens in the 3 months or 6 months leading up to Election Day, or by the percentage of people that turn out to vote on Election Day. You measure the health of a democracy, and by this measurement, maybe we don't come off so good, by the number of people who are still busy, active, on the things that matter to them after the election is over. Obama was never going to lead on things like a single-payer health care plan. But he was never and will never close the door on that kind of thing. If there is a sufficient popular movement for that, then Obama is going to take that as a serious policy option.
Yeah, my take always had been that Obama said, I can't do it by myself, I need you. And basically that means that he needs to be pushed. And, you know, not unlike Roosevelt when say, make me do things.
Absolutely.
And it's, I think that as much as the left may be grumbling that some of it's in their court, our court, let's say, honestly, that we have to build more movement. We have many people working on a lot of issues, but we have to get a cohesive movement that unites a lot of these issues and people, and we have to push them.
Right. And if there's time for one more
you got a minute.
point, okay, I would say that you have people working on this, in fairly large numbers on a wide variety of really critical issues, like climate change, like public education, like health care. All of those people should also have at the top of their agenda an anti-militarist perspective that they blend and they proceed with. We have the social and political distortions
Michael,
in our
wrap
country
up the show.
that have been introduced since President Eisenhower identified the military-industrial complex are probably the most anti-democratic elements of our society. Unless we stop spending trillions of dollars a year on that sort of thing, we cannot build the country we want.